Good evening from Tampa in South Carolina, where 10.4% unemployment is the second highest and fastest growing jobless rate in the country. The only Republican lawmaker who seems to think it's a good idea to put as many as 7,500 teachers out of work there by choice is the state's Governor Mark Sanford. His Wile E. Coyote plan of caliber of that plan is to put the education money out of Obama's stimulus and use it instead to pay down the state debt. But our fifth story on the countdown, that will only happen if Republicans and Democrats in the South Carolina state legislature are not able to stop him first. Finally, President Obama getting some of the bipartisanship he's been working for so hard on the economy, as well as financial indicators now moving in a positive direction, however slight. America's three biggest banks this week all reporting profits for the first 2 months of the year. Citigroup adding it does not need any more money from the government right now. Also, the stock market responding with its best week since November. 4 days in which there were not only not losses, but there were, quietly, slight gains. All of those voices on the right, which were demanding last week, having blamed Obama thoroughly and blamed the Dow's decline on him and his economic policies, if not his very existence, now conspicuously silent. In a speech at the Brookings Institution this morning, Obama's economic advisor Larry Summers saying that consumer spending seems to have stabilized, adding that an excess of fear is compounding the economic crisis. At the White House this afternoon, the president just as cautiously optimistic.
If we are keeping focused on all the fundamentally sound aspects of our economy, all the outstanding companies, workers, all the innovation and dynamism in this economy, then we're going to get through this, and I'm very confident about that.
Of course, there's still plenty that could undermine Obama's plan for economic recovery, especially Governor Sanford and the other Republican governors who are now apparently actively trying to sabotage it. In Texas, Rick Perry adding his name to the list of Republican governors hoping to order off the stim menu a la carte, taking only the money that he wants and doing with it only what he wants. Next door in Louisiana, members of that state's legislature's Black Caucus now trying to block Governor Bobby Jindal in his effort to do the same. Similar to how lawmakers in South Carolina are trying to save the state from Governor Sanford's destruction. President Obama, you see, having kept his promise to that young girl who sat next to the First Lady at his speech to a joint session of Congress, a student who had written him a letter asking for money to fix her crumbling Dillon, South Carolina school. But as we mentioned, if Governor Sanford prevails, she and her classmates still won't get it, nor teachers for that matter. Up to 7,500 educators in that state would have to be fired as a direct result of Sanford's desire to divert education funding from the stimulus to pay down the state debt. State Senate Finance Committee Chairman Hugh Letterman, who is a Republican, knocking the move, calling it tomfoolery, born out of Sanford's desire to make headlines. Mr. Letterman now leading the effort to override his own party's governor, Sanford's, rejection of the funds. Last night on Fixed News, Governor Sanford explaining how he would plunge the South Carolina economy back into the dark ages.
It's not a good idea to spend money that you don't have, whether in your personal life, in the world of business, or for that matter, in the world of politics. At the end of the day, all this stimulus money is about spending money we don't have. We don't think that's a good idea, but that debate was lost. Rather than spending it, let's take it and dedicate it to paying down debts already held by the state of South Carolina, and that'll make our finances that much stronger as we go into this financial storm.
Congressman James Clyburn of South Carolina, the Democratic whip, having inserted the clause into the stim, now making it possible for all legislatures across the country to bypass the governors who try to reject or redirect stimulus money, and not just in South Carolina. Congressman Clyburn has been good enough to join us this evening. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me, Keith.
What led you to anticipate these stimulus battles being waged not just in South Carolina, but also in Louisiana and Texas and Mississippi and who knows where else it might yet happen?
Well, first of all, I've had a long history with Governor Sanford. He's been governor now for 6 years in South Carolina, but he also served 6 years in the Congress. So I know a little bit about his philosophy of governance. And I was a bit leery of the meeting that at that time, President-elect Obama had down in Philadelphia when all of the governors came in. Well, 46 governors were there. And the other 4 states were represented. And when I talked with the president-elect at the time, he told me that all the governors seemed to be okay with what he was doing, except 2. And one of them was Governor Sanford and Governor Perry of Texas. And so I started discussing with my legislative leaders here. You just mentioned Senator Hugh Letterman. Senator Congressman, Speaker of the House, Bobby Harrell. I spoke with him twice today. We're working on making sure that the House and the Senate here, though they're both controlled by Republicans, they are both interested in trying to do what's best for South Carolinians. Keith, we got a 10.4% unemployment rate. Allendale County, 24%. Marion County that I represent, 22% unemployment. These are depression levels. And for us to be talking about debt reduction at the time we've got an economic crisis, it's tantamount to talking about conserving water when the neighborhood is on fire. We have got to do what is necessary to get people back to work, get communities stabilized, get people's mortgages back restructured so we can do what is necessary to educate our children and move these communities forward.
Do you think you're going to get this overturned in South Carolina? You're going to get your colleagues in those houses are going to get this this crazy notion from the governor stopped before it becomes law?
Absolutely. I got great faith and confidence in the South Carolina General Assembly. There are times when we do things in a partisan way, but after the elections are over, most often than not, here in South Carolina, we put all that aside and we try to work together. I enjoy working with Speaker of the House, Bobby Harrell, and with Senator Hugh Letterman, and with Senator Glenn McConnell. We work very well together on behalf of our state, and I'm convinced that there will be an overwhelming vote in both of those houses to bring that money into the budget. Let's do what's necessary to get little Tashioma Bethea the school that she wants and needs. Let's do what is necessary to put infrastructure in these communities up and down the I-95 corridor, put in the water, put in the sewage, get people back to work, get their communities stabilized, and let's begin to stand our neighborhoods back up.
Governor Sanford, and I know you've already commented on this, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to do this again, also compared President Obama's plans to the ones being enacted in Zimbabwe by Robert Mugabe. If that's not playing a race card in there, is at least that's, it sounds to me like, or maybe I give him a pass on the idea that he's making some comparison to skin color here, but he is comparing President of the United States to the leader, essentially the dictator of a nation that's being held together with staples. I mean, to me, it's an offensive remark on a couple of levels at least.
Well, you're talking about a country with 11 million% inflation rate. I ask you, what is the inflation rate here in the United States of America? Last time I checked, no inflation. So what's the comparison here? You're talking about a dictator that ought to be run out of office, if not out of the country, and compare him with President Obama, who just got elected in a magnanimous way, who is reaching out to both sides of the aisle, trying to govern in a bipartisan way, trying to work with all the elements in our society to stand this economy back up. I have absolutely no idea what Governor Sanford could possibly be thinking about. That's beyond the pale.
Last question. Are there recall provisions for the governor in the South Carolina Constitution, or can he be impeached? Should we be talking about that, considering that at this point?
Well, nobody's talking about that, and quite frankly, I do not think that we have recall provisions in South Carolina law. I suspect that the legislature can have some kind of show of no-confidence or something with some kind of resolution, but I don't think it's any provision in South Carolina law for us to have any kind of a recall. But I don't want to spend any energy on that. We've got less than 2 years with Governor Sanford. I want all of our energy to be focused on our constituents. We've got too many people in the state. Our state depends upon tourism as its number one industry. And you know what happens with tourism when people lose all disposable income. So we got to be working together, focus on the people that we're here to represent. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on Governor Sanford and his shenanigans.
United States Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina putting those shenanigans in good perspective for us tonight. Great thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.